for permission to repair an existing timber pier by hand.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board?
I just had one question, Jen. The 6x6 posts, what are they gonna be made of? It doesn't say if they can't be non-CCA. You can just
Mr. McGrath? We'll just put
Put it in
on
there.
CCA. Yeah, that's fine.
okay, that's all.
Yeah, you guys, you saw the reconstruction of this house, and then right before the house, we we issued an RDA for licensing permit purposes. The thing's been there forever.
Ever, yeah, I
No.
remember that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Next up are continued hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings at the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority.
I had this.
First up, Charlene Cardoza, trustee, estate of Charles A. Cardoza, 2012 revocable trust, 41 Mary Manuel Way, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to construct a new single-family dwelling with dry wells and all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping.
The quorum for this is Jamie, Russell, Kevin, and Peter. Steve, were you not here? You
I
were
was not here.
No, I missed one meeting.
Okay.
You had a very skinny forum that night, as I recall.
Okay, so Jamie, Russell, Kevin, and Peter.
Not necessarily weak, but.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker. I was here for 2 weeks ago, and the hearing was continued to address a couple of concerns of the commission. Among them was to to improve the resource area buffer, at least as we proposed to put in 3 trees in this location, native trees. I had suggested tupelo, a red maple, up in the front here, and I suppose you could leave it at the discretion of the board or staff. It could be changed to a different one, but there'd be some native trees installed. There's also concern about drainage going off the site, mainly during construction. So we extended the limit of work, the straw bales along the edge of the pavement here, because it is a downhill slope from the site work down to here. So we'll put some straw bales along there to stop runoff. And then once it's done, to stop runoff into the roadway, we put in a paved apron in this location, which the town requests, and a trench drain across with a pipe leading to a leaching chamber in this location. It had 2 other of these dry wells at the front, one here and one here, but in putting this larger system in here, I took both of those dry wells out and just connect them down by pipe to here. So this chamber here will take the runoff from the driveway and the roof runoff into one system. I believe those were the concerns. I'll take any questions.
Jen?
No, was the rinse station on your last plan too, Tom?
I believe so.
Okay, no, I don't remember it off the top of my head. No, I'm fine, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Kevin, you want to start?
No questions.
Peter?
You addressed all the concerns that I have written down, so no questions.
Russ?
I'm good.
All right. That was easy. Thank you.
Make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing, oh,
My name is Edward McCormick, and I am an abutter to this property. I appeared last time, and I made the point, which I reiterate today, that I am not here to oppose the project because I'm an abutter. I only ask that whatever standards are applicable be applied. This house right here is where I live. I understand that your concern is mostly on this side, but, you know, I just wanted to make sure that there were no loosening of whatever standards you might apply to this project. So that's the gist of my comments. I would make one additional comment, though, is that before I retired to Falmouth, I worked on the Big Dig, and one of the big concerns there was dust pollution that was resulting from construction. Granted, Big Dig was a much bigger project than anything that occurs in Falmouth, but a lot of times I see construction sites in which the trucks are coming out, and there's a lot of dirt that ends up on the street, and that creates a little bit of air pollution. And I just wonder if there were any provisions in the plans to construct this house to mitigate dust pollution.
well, he has proposed limit of work, which will control the on-site.
Pardon me?
He has a proposed limit of work, which will control erosion on-site or from leaving the site.
We had them extend the limit of work, sir, along the edge of the roadway so that the soil would be contained on site. It wouldn't run off into the road.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Tom, I think we asked this already, but I'm gonna ask you again, sorry. The path down to the marsh, we deal with that?
What was the path? Similar to Vista pruning, if during construction, you could come back to the board and
Thank you.
propose a location.
Okay, any further comments from the public? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote, close the hearing and take it under advisement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Do we need a
Thanks.
quorum for the next one? Doubt
Yep, I'll get it for you.
Next up, Delcor Realty Trust, care of Joanna Delapa, 418 Minot Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to replace and extend the existing pier.
Good evening, I'm Matthew Wadsky here on behalf of the applicant. With me is Scott Goddard, the environmental consultant. So I thought we'd give an update of the thought process we've been working on and discuss some issues with the commission. So at the end of the last meeting, the commission agreed to have Ms. McKay send me a number of the variance decisions so that we could review decisions the commission has made previously. I believe I got those sometime the second or third week of January, which was helpful. Thank you very much. I've done some additional research on decisions that the commission has made as well. And What that led me to is to, well, look, number one, at the standards for grant of a variance as a whole, and in particular, looking at alternatives that are available, as well as the question of what's a hardship, and should this ever get into this kind of a dispute, if it were to go beyond this. Question of the actual standards that exist for determining what's a significant habitat. But one of the things that we're looking at is that in order to qualify for a variance, one needs to evaluate additional alternatives that are available. The alternative that we looked at is available under the standards for determining whether significant habitat exists or not, is to reassess the question of whether the area actually has a significant population of shellfish in it or not. As you'll recall from the presentation we made before, Paul Caruso, a marine biologist, reviewed the site. He presented his report, and although there is more than one quahog per square yard that he found on the site, he reported that his conclusion was that there was very low productivity, which he concluded was the case consistent with the low quality substrate. It's very mucky. Is that of the 44 clams that he found, only 4 were small, were set size, and all the rest of them were many years old, indicating to him, number one, that the area had not been shellfished any time in the recent past, and that you had very low productivity, as evidenced by the low number of small clams in the area, indicating that you hadn't had productivity in the area for many years. So if you have clams that are there that are 10 or 15 or 20 years old, this is not an area that's productive. But your rules don't provide a specific procedure for how does one present to you the information about the age of the clams. But what your rules do provide, however, is that if an area has been shellfished, that it's presumed significant habitat for 6 months, and then after that 6 months, the presumption would go away, and to demonstrate whether the area is productive or not, one would then do another survey. So as we're looking at this, saying we do not believe that this is a productive area, but one way that we could prove it is that we would conduct a shellfishing of the area, perhaps under a DMF-issued scientific permit, carefully document the number of shellfish that we find, wait at least 6 months, and then go back after the season when the clams would be putting out their sets and shellfish it again, and then be able to report to you whether the area has been productive during that season. So that's the direction we're headed if we're not able to bring the commission to voting to approve the project with the information that's basically in front of you now. I do think that you have enough information that you could grant the variance if you were inclined, and I'd be glad to talk about that again. But if you're not inclined to vote and approve the project, then we would ask to have it continued for, it would probably be a 6-month or 7-month time period. We're going to find out tomorrow, we understand, that whether the green pond is going to be available for shellfishing again. We would have already done this. We had identified a commercial shellfisherman who could have gone out and done this for us with Paul Caruso there to observe and to actually document the shellfish. But Little Green Pond was closed to shellfishing in the beginning of November and hasn't been open since. So we've spoken with DMF and the shellfish warden, and our understanding is that there should be test results available tomorrow, which will tell us whether we're going to be able to go ahead and shellfish the area to generate the additional data. So I do want to correct a couple of misinformations that there were from the record as I read the minutes previously. One, if we're talking about the history of the property and question whether there's a hardship, I'd like to emphasize that there was, number one, there was a pre-existing structure on the property before the permit that was issued in 1983 to build the structure that you see there now. Then there was, in fact, a permit issued in 1983 that allowed the project, allowed the construction of the dock in the condition that it is in now. And that when Mr. DeLappa, the current owner, purchased the property, he purchased it with all the permits and approvals in place and with the expectation, the obligation for the prior owner, so Mr. Stivaleta was the previous owner, to have built the dock. And it was in fact Mr. Stivaleta who built it, although he built it after the closing, but that was his continued obligation. So if we're talking about hardship, we're talking about someone who owns the property, who's owned it since 1986, I think it is, 86 or 87, with his expectation at the time when he bought it that permits were all in place for the dock, and that it was not going to be his obligation to build it. And his recollection is that he actually came before the commission back in the 1980s and was given an okay to keep the dock and to maintain it as well. I don't have minutes of the meetings to prove that, although it makes sense to me because the commission never took action from that time period and to require its removal. So it seems logical to me that he had spoken with someone and was given an okay. I know that there's a letter from the building inspector from 1988 that said it was apparently built after the order conditions had expired, but then nothing happened after that as well. So anyway, Mr. DeLappa's recollection is that he was given an okay by the commission back then to keep it. But in any event, regarding hardship, he purchased the property with the expectation that the dock was there, and it was not his agent that built it. It was his predecessor in interest. We can then jump into the mitigating measures. We've provided mitigating measures. There's the I think 12,000 clams that would be dispersed. We've got the design that would take the existing structure, which has the solid wood decking, and replace it with the light pervious material, and elevate it higher above the water and above the substrate. You've got minimal pilings being proposed. You've got a float that would be in deep enough water so that if a boat is pulled up to it, it wouldn't be prop dredging. Unlike if a boat were to ever come up to the existing dock, it would be in the mud. The proposed design is just unquestionably better than what's out there right now for purposes of protection of the environment, while having effectively no adverse impact. When you're talking about an area that is demonstrably of very limited productivity, we would argue of not sufficient productivity to even qualify as significant habitat, but we're talking about mitigation of that, even though it's of such limited productivity. And I think that the rest of the variance standards have been met. So, as I said, leave it to the commission. Actually, if you would like, I believe Mr. Goddard has the aerial. I assume it's just an aerial because it wouldn't have been satellites at that time. An aerial image of the property in 1986, showing the structure that existed before the structure that was built. So it shows the pre-existing. If you want us to flip to that, we can do that too. But I'd like to open it to the commission and get the sense from the board members of, which direction do you want us to go? Do you want us to continue and do more study? Or do you want to grapple with this and consider variance now?
Jamie, a couple of things. Thank you, Mr. Watsey. You said our regulations say you can redo your survey within 6 months. Can you point to that regulation for me?
Yes, it's section H4.
H4? Oh, under the dock regs?
Yes. for when is an area presumed to be significant for shellfish, and it says it's presumed to be significant if it's been shellfished within the past 6 months. So you have a presumption, if it's been shellfished, that it's significant for 6 months, but after that 6 months, then it's no longer presumed significant, which leaves you to the fallback of going and doing another survey.
Yes, and we can also actually have the Shellfish Constable do a survey out there as well. Okay, when did your applicant purchase the property?
I believe it was in the late 1986, I believe. I don't have the deed in
Is it
front of me right
86
now.
or 83?
No.
He bought it in 86.
Yeah, I thought he bought it,
Bought it in
it's either 86 or 87. I think it was 86. I have some of the paperwork where he was already in contact with the building inspector. And I can,
He did not purchase the property with all of the applicable permits because they never obtained a Chapter 91 license, which is why the building commissioner wouldn't issue a building permit for the dock. So the dock was built without a building permit from the building commissioner, correct? You said it had all
so-
applicable
all
permits.
the,
You wanted to
all
correct
the,
the record.
I'm talking about local permits.
And I'm talking
And-
about all applicable permits,
Well,
which you said all permits, he had obtained all permits.
So a Chapter 91 license can only be granted after you have the other local permits and approvals. And yes, apparently Mr. Stivaleta didn't apply for the Chapter 91 license, and that would have been something that Mr. DeLappa would have to take care of.
And the dock was never issued a building permit, so, and was actually ordered removed because it was not built with the proper permits.
Right.
Correct. You wanted to correct the
The-
record, Mr. Watsy, we can do this all day.
Pardon?
I said, we can do this all day with trying to go back and forth with correcting the record. There's a really clear timeline in the record about when the permit was issued, when your client purchased the property, you know, when the building commissioner issued the removal letter. So there was never a Chapter 91 permit. The building permit was never issued. So the history is kind of it's kind of messy in this situation.
It is, it's not, obviously, it's not a perfect record, Ms.
No,
McKay.
it's
I
not.
understand that entirely. You have, I mean, Lincoln, you have, but we have someone who purchased the property with the expectation and the requirement that his predecessor was going to provide the dock. The predecessor built it, but we acknowledge he didn't pull a building permit prior to doing so, and apparently the order of conditions that was issued in 1983 approving the dock in the way that it was actually constructed had expired at the time when Mr. Stivaleta built it. That's all true. That's all true.
Okay.
It's also true that at that time, the commission did not have any specific standards for docks of the like that it has now, and the dock, in fact, was built. And so here it is. So what are we going to do? The dock in its current condition and for the proposed reconstruction does have a State Wetlands Protection Act permit, and was there before the current standards that the Conservation Commission now imposes came into effect. And we're trying through this application process to get approval to reconstruct it and bring it into compliance with your current standards.
I think the issue that this board has, Mr. Watsky, is that the dock, you know, they want to apply their current standards because technically the dock, you know, according to the record, is not allowed to be there. And Mr. DeLappa, your client, ignored the town building commissioner, ordered to remove it. So, here we are.
Right. Well,
You have, I mean, we have the shellfish survey that your clients did. If your shellfish survey in 6 or 7 months, and, I mean, we're going on, this application was filed of May of last year. this board has given the applicant ample amounts of time to present their case, conduct the needed surveys. You know, we'll have this agenda item. I mean, if you want to go out another 6 months, we're looking at almost, you know, over a year that this has been on the agenda. You've presented, this is the second time you've actually presented before the board. So why, I think this board deserves some explanation of why the continued delays with this project.
Well, it's interesting for you to spin it that way. What I've presented is that, in my view, the board has what it needs to be able to grant the variance now, but I'm asking for input from the board that if it feels it is not satisfied with that, that we are prepared to do an additional survey after having done the shell fishing. And I believe, given what Mr. Caruso has reported about the very low productivity in this area, that if we do what we're suggesting, that the next time that there's a survey after the area has been shellfished, you will have far less than 1 quahog per square meter or square yard that will be identified. And so with less than 1 quahog per square yard present after that second survey, it would no longer require a variance because it would comply with that standard. It would not be within an area considered or presumed to be significant shellfish habitat. And that's the only variance that we're asking for. So, so we could go that direction, but the question is, does the board feel that it needs to go that direction? You have information available to you to conclude that although that this is an area of very low productivity, that you have the property owner with you could find it's a hardship. You could find that there's adequate mitigation with the 12,000 shellfish that would be provided, and with the redesign of the dock, and you can find the other requirements for grant of this permit. It's a question: does the board want to do that, or have more study done? Personally, I think it's process over protection is an expression that was in vogue back in the late '80s at DEP. That's what they were trying to avoid, was having process over protection. Oh, you know, we need to study it some more. At some point, you say you've got enough information, and if something makes sense, and it's okay to make a decision. But if the commission wants additional study, we'll provide it.
So what you're suggesting is that you're going to go and shellfish the area and then do your survey?
Precisely. That's exactly what one would contemplate from the way the regulation is set up. We would engage the services of a commercial shellfisherman, either just with his commercial shellfish license or with a special permit issued by the Division of Marine Fisheries for a scientific study, so that we would go and shellfish the area around the dock and around the mooring area, to document how many shellfish are in fact there, and to remove them from the area so that you're no longer going back and counting shellfish that are 10 and 15 and 20 and 25 years old, and then wait the 6 months that's provided in section H4. I'm assuming that the commission would apply that section and say, well, whether it's been shellfished for scientific study purposes or by a commercial shellfisherman or someone else, we'll still presume that it's significant for that 6-month time period. And in any event, it takes at least 6 months for the shellfish sets to go in place and to get large enough so that you can find them. And then after a reasonable time period, we go back in and survey it again.
So basically, you're suggesting that you're gonna go in, clean the whole site out with the adult shellfish that would cause the spat and allow for a set. You're gonna remove those from the area and then come back and see if what other quahogs move into the area and provide a set. I mean, that's basically what you're saying. I mean, we say shellfish area, we, don't mean to target the area around your dock and clean out every adult quahog in the area so that there's no ability to have a natural set.
Well,
That's
I mean,
basically what you're suggesting.
No, that's not what I'm suggesting at all, and for you to suggest
maybe-
that is absurd, because
Well,
you have,
maybe I
you have the
misunderstood.
entire green pond filled with quahogs, and they're not getting completely shellfished out. We're just talking about removing them from this specific area around this dock.
Your
in the air-
project, right?
in order to determine whether you have a productive area here with sets coming from all the rest of the quahogs throughout Green Pond. Because that's the way shellfish propagate themselves. They put out set, and it flows with the tides, and it settles in the bottom, and they start growing. So I'm only working with the black and white rules that you guys set up. You create a presumption that an area is significant for shellfish habitat if it's been shellfished for 6 months after it's been shellfished. So just as if a commercial shellfish fisherman had come through here and fished the whole thing out, and you wouldn't allow us to come in 2 months later, do a survey, and say, well, guess what? We didn't find any. Well, of course we didn't, because someone had come in and shellfished it. Well, that's perfectly appropriate for the commission to have that rule. You've got it in black and white. So what do you do after that? Well, you don't say permanently forever that you can never come back in and do a survey. Your rule says after it's been shellfished, you have 6 months. And after 6 months, you can do another survey. And I've talked with Paul Caruso, the marine biologist. He says, well, you wouldn't want to do it 6 months from today because the shellfish are probably setting out their sets sometime in the summer, but by September, you could easily go out there, do another survey, and they'd be large enough so that with his 1/8 inch sieve net, he'd be able to find the sets if they're there.
One thing, Mr. Chairman, is that, this proposal should have been presented to the commission a week prior, so we could have contacted the shellfish constable to ask his opinion on this. We ask that any new information or any new proposals come before this board. When I called the applicant's representative, I specifically asked if there was going to be any information presented to this board. This is not appropriate for the board to make a decision on this without consulting with your shellfish constable. So,
Did he ever report prior?
Chuck did, he just said it was like a natural set. I just had his report, hang on. Is that anything there, was it, I just had it. Hang on, I'll find it.
I have it, Mr. Chairman.
Can you read that? What do I do with it?
I do remember that.
It's up to the board. I have no other questions or comments.
Well, it is quite creative. Giving us, I'm really concerned with the fact that shellfish that are there, that are all removed, and I know you say that they will naturally reset from other areas in the green pond, but we all know that weather, water temperature, water quality, all sorts of things affect shellfish. And some years you have good sets, some years you have bad sets. So now you're going to remove any adults that could maybe create a good set, and then we get a bad year for, shellfish in general, and it happens a lot in Falmouth with the high temperatures of the water, the algal blooms. I've never heard this one before, so it is quite creative, and if it's in our regs, it's in our regs, but I don't interpret them that way. I did not think we went in and shellfished out all the mature adults and then let you go in and do another survey. That being said,
It wouldn't be any different if an area had a commercial shellfisherman go through and shellfish it out, right?
probably not.
We set it up as a very specific grid.
Grid, as I say, it's each square, you get each species, size. Shellfishmen don't do that. I mean, they just go in and get what is allowed to be taken, which is mature adult, usually 2-inch.
Well, I could picture a commercial shell fisherman, if he thought that this was a productive area that was worth shellfishing, going the length of the dock on both sides of it to clean it out, and, you know, he'd drift his boat, put out his rake, let the boat drift and pull everything up from alongside the side of the dock, and then go back and do it on the other side of the dock.
That being
There's-
said, what
I mean, we're not talking about doing anything that's any different from what
I
a commercial
understand that.
shipper or shellfisherman would do.
And we're
And the entire rest of Green Pond is filled with quahogs that put out their set, and the set settle wherever they're gonna settle. They don't, it's not the clam that's sitting right here that's putting out the set that.
I understand this.
Well,
And actually, you just clarified something, which was my next statement. Just because nobody's in the house right now doesn't mean it's not going to have somebody in the house. And it's the same with shellfish. Just because 6 months after you shellfished it out,
Yeah.
it's the habitat, it's where they live. They might not be there today, but it is an area that is a place where they will and can and have lived.
Well, that's true, but the standard that your regulations set, which I frankly think is illogical and unreasonably strict, but the standard that your regulation sets is to determine whether an area is significant shellfish habitat or not, is a numerical one. It says if you go out and you do a survey and you find 1 quahog per square yard, that you consider it significant habitat, period, end of discussion.
Well, you just stated yourself that Green Pond is significant habitat.
Parts of it are.
I'm gonna digest this a little
Well,
bit,
I mean, we're not, just to clarify, I mean, we're not asking for permission to do the shellfishing and the additional survey. I think it's something that we can do as a matter of law under the regulations, either yours or the DMF and the shellfish warden's rules, as long as he opens Green Pond to shellfishing, and we'll find that out tomorrow, although I think a scientific study could be done regardless. What I'm presenting to you is that this is how we're going to go about generating the additional information for you. And the question, once again, is, do you feel that you have enough information already to decide that it's appropriate to grant a variance for this project, given all the different factors that we have and the interests of the commission in having docks that exist comply with your current design standards, such as the light pervious decking and having it elevated, and to have whatever float is out there, and there used to be one, but it didn't comply with your current rules, to meet your standards? Do you have enough information to decide now to grant the variance? If not, we'll continue, and we'll agree to a continuance that gives us enough time to go ahead and do this additional study that we're gonna do.
All right, well,
Let's see what the rest of the board has to say.
Are you good for the moment? We'll
I'm
come
good
back
for the
to you.
moment, yep.
Russ?
I've kind of kept an eye on this. I can remember when it first came up, when Green Pond was iced over, and it just sent the thing up. The total, the end of it got wiped out. And I've kept an eye on it. I've never seen any of the commercial guys over in that area. And I'm gonna say that's gotta be, what, 6 years now, Jen? And I've never seen anybody over there bull raking in that area.
They're usually
And
like,
it's usually
in the
5 days a
channel.
week I go
yeah, they're in the.
in that area.
Yeah, they're in the, when you're going over the bridge, like right off the bridge, like
And
in
more
that
towards the
middle
channel
channel
on each
area.
side of
That's
the
where they
channel.
usually are.
So again, so, yeah, maybe it's gonna be productive someday, but that's another if. Do we cause more damage by, I mean, one way or the other, this has gotta be solved. Do we cause more damage by having this thing all taken out of there, what's existing? I'm really batting this one around and having trouble trying to make a decision on it, and I just think we really need to move it along. It's just gone on for way too long, one way or the other, but again, I do have concerns that you start pulling all this apart, now you're gonna be causing more damage than if you just repaired what you had and go on. So, that's all I got.
Steve?
Interesting observation. I also drive at least once a day by the site, and I'm fascinated by these guys that go out and go clamming in ridiculous weather, so I usually observe them and admire them bluntly, but I never see anybody over there. And in my observations of the site, it is, well, you'd have to do it with the long poles and a skiff, but I haven't seen any over there. And it's been a busy fall for the guys. The guys going out of Minot or out of Wacoit are out every day now, where some winters they take a couple days off due to weather or. So I really don't see, I think the survey is going to result in the fact that a very limited quahog in the area and probably no oysters. And eventually we're going to move forward with a dock. Russ's comments I hadn't thought about of the construction techniques, but other than that, I think we ought to move forward with this.
Moving forward, you mean close the hearing and take it under advisement?
That's what I mean.
Okay. Can't get to 86.
I have a question for Jen.
Yes, sir.
In your opinion, with the exception of the shellfish regulation, does the dock meet the current standards?
Yes.
That's it?
The only variance request is the shellfish.
Thank you. Kevin?
I guess I've got a couple of concerns. One, the offer of the 6-month is, I'd like to know if you do clean it out and then after a period of 6 months, is that a fair test of whether it's, I have no idea whether that's true or not.
That is something that you should get a second opinion on if you're gonna go down this road and open this up to every other dock project. Put some thought into that one. I would not, I would want a second opinion on that, absolutely. Having a scientific permit to clear out an area to try to reduce the number of shellfish so a dock can go in? I mean, that's.
Well, like I say,
Yep.
that is something that we don't know
No, we don't.
is factual or not. But by the same token, my understanding is you're gonna replace the dock?
The ramp and float, I believe.
The proposal is to use most of the existing pilings, but replace the decking. I think it's place 2 new pilings at the end of it, and then have a gangway out to where the float would go. That's it. So you'd have 2 new pilings at the end of the dock, and I think the four pilings for the float.
My concern was, I walked out on it almost all the way.
Yeah.
And it was, didn't give you a very safe and warm feeling about walking out on it, okay? So that is something leaning towards either tear the damn thing down or approve a project that replaces it. But I want to have some kind of, how many times has this been on our docket? We need to move on.
Since May 2019.
Okay.
So the question is, do we have enough information, or do you want?
I had only 2 other quick questions, Jen. One, on the plan, it says replace, you say existing piers to replace as needed. So you just said only 2.
I'll
So
let
what's
Mr.
as
Goddard
needed?
respond.
Can you identify?
This is Scott Goddard.
So this is,
Come on in.
this is the profile view
Mm-hmm.
right here, and this is the plan view. So currently, the tile's in right here, and it says as needed, whether they would be.
Sir, if you could use the microphone, if you use the mouse,
Yeah.
you can accomplish what you were.
That's fine. So it appears that the last, two are elevated.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones all appear to be intact, right? So the repair, repairing effort, so these two right in here, it appears that the rest of them are intact. That's what the dock company, appears to say. So they would basically be, the replacement, proposed end of station. Yeah, so I think this one right here is new. This one needs to be reset down, and then there's the float that goes, the ramp that goes down from there. So there's one kind of new set to be replaced, and maybe some other repairs as needed, but it looks like it's just gonna be.
We don't really like to, we like it more clear usually,
What-
not
what-
as needed.
Right.
Because the next thing we know, there's 15 or 20
Then
piles.
we can eliminate that language, right? It's just the two at the end that are elevated, right? And then they're gonna put the ramp down, and then they have to put the piers in with the float.
Mr. Goddard, have you had a dock company look at that and see if that's feasible?
The guys from Little River.
Little River,
yeah,
okay.
They went
No,
out there
that's
and
fine.
looked at it. That's what they concluded. I think the language of as needed was in case something kind of came up.
No, I
but
think
that-
you need to replace the end too.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do need to do
Or
that.
reset.
Yeah, or reset. It's just when somebody's left with a as needed, needs can become very needy. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Understood. No, there's no plans to replace any of those other ones.
And then there was no, Jen, there was no soundings in the mooring field, so, no.
Yes, we had sounding depths all
There's none on my plan.
I'll
so
gi-
maybe
I'll
it's a
give it to
different
you.
plan. Maybe the
So if you
original
look at
plan.
this
Right.
plan here, let me see.
I'm looking at the revised date of 11/20/2019, then 6/3/2019, with the original date of 4/10. I don't know if that's the final one I'm looking at. Is that
Okay,
the one?
so, see here, all these little sounding depths here?
I know, that's not where the mooring field is. See the little blue thing? It's called the mooring field. Proposed mooring
Oh,
field,
yeah,
the
this one
blue.
right here.
Yeah, you're supposed to have a depth in there.
Didn't that say 3.6 right underneath the dock?
No. Under the dock, it says 3/1.
Right.
I mean, I'm assuming it's deep enough, but usually we
3-1 there.
require.
3-1. And that's why the stop blocks were proposed, to get it underneath the bottom of the float. So the bottom of the float would always have 3 foot of clearance.
Right, but the thing is when the boat is in the mooring field and it has prop wash, that's the concern of how deep it is, so, but I'm looking left to right of it, north to south, east to west, it's pretty consistent right across, but just just consistency, we always have the mooring depth, and the depth in the mooring field,
Understood.
and that's all.
Kevin?
Given the amount of investigation that's gone into this, as long as there was something in our decision that disavowed the 6-month and followed by 6-month method as a scientific method for determining this, and relying upon the evidence of what we have from everybody who's commented on the area, I'd be willing to go along with closing it.
Okay, then I have one last question, I'm sorry, because I just saw this over here. On page 4, it says, according, description of lighting, electrical, and potable water connections, including sufficient detail to demonstrate compliance with any lighting performance standards, and then it says, there will be no lighting appliances located on proposed dock. And then I'm looking, and you have proposed electrical to the dock, so there's no lighting? And you said that there was,
Not shore power just for a boat?
well, it says they're not gonna have a boat on it either.
Where are you seeing the electricals?
Just a minute. I checked the red locational documents, Site plan for proposed mooring for the dock and existing moorings. It should be noted that the applicant doesn't own any motorboat nor intends to purchase one to use at this dock. Page 4.
Currently, there is no boat. There may be one at some point, right? But right now, there is not one that would be immediately placed here.
And then it says there's not gonna be any lighting on it either. And then you have over here on the existing pier, proposed pier specs, electrical conduit and water line. And you said you're not gonna have a boat, water, or electric.
Can I look at what you're reviewing?
Yeah, they count. I'm sorry.
No,
No,
it's practical to have electric and water though.
I agree, but
Right. But their own information should match.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah,
There
right
it
now,
is.
there's no electric proposed.
So you're saying you're not gonna propose electrical?
I guess if we were to propose it, we would have to come back before you.
because, and you're not showing any way to get it out there from the house. It'd be
Right.
going through the A buffer.
It's not there now.
It's not there now, that's correct.
It's not there, it's just on, it's actually just on your proposed pier and deck section. But it's nowhere on the site, the plot plan, or in the narrative that you're gonna have it.
Correct.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Watsky mentioned that they have a photo from '86. What month was it taken in '86?
I think it was,
Where was the photo obtained?
it's a historical aerials. No, I don't know if. This, no. I did have it up on my lap. Can I not open JPEG files on here?
I don't know.
Doesn't seem to have software that supports that.
Computer's not my strength.
I can just show it to you on my laptop, if that helps. I could, see that what says the JPEG files there? No, I don't know.
The reason I ask is because you say that there was a dock there in '86.
Yeah,
Your applicant didn't apply for a building permit for '87, so again, the dock was constructed without a valid building permit because the building commissioner, in a letter in '87, denied the dock. May 5th, 1987, request and denial of a building permit for the construction of the dock.
Mr. Chairman, is there a question?
It's okay, Mr. Goddard. Did you get it out of Historic Aerials?
we did get it from the historical,
I just need
This is prior to this current document.
Historic Aerials? Okay.
You have to agree that that's.
But that didn't have a Chapter 91 license either, correct?
This goes back.
Well, that one went back to the 80s and should have had a Chapter 91 and it didn't, so I'm just asking, just asking.
I would guess.
Okay, so nothing was legal, okay.
Memorial concern.
That's,
Okay. So basically, Mr. Chairman, whatever structure was out there was not a valid legal structure either, without a chapter 91.
Or it predates.
Conservation Commission
Chapter
doesn't enforce
91,
Chapter 91.
there's a
however, so
dock
Your
in-
focus is on wetlands.
No, I
right?
understand that, but you're saying that there was a pre-existing dock, and I'm saying that that dock did not have a chapter 91. The whole problem with this dock is that it was built without permits, it never obtained the proper permits, and you want to ignore that fact and ask this board to act like it's a pre-existing structure. So, and don't tell me, wait, one more second, Attorney Watsky. Mr. Goddard, when did chapter 91 come into effect? 1800s. There's a dock in the town of Yarmouth that has a date of 1890-something. So you're gonna tell me that that little wooden structure predated chapter 91? It did not.
I think Mr. Goddard was referring to the DEP Chapter 91 regulations that weren't adopted until the 1970s. Certainly, the Chapter 91 program for wharves and the like has been in effect since, if you, really, if you want to go back in time, it comes out of the Justinian Code, so we can go back before there was the United States, if you really want to go that far.
so my recommendation is that we're gonna have to continue this till next week, just for the clarification on this, which would be, new plan showing no water, no electrical, need soundings in the mooring field, a letter from Chuck, and
A letter from Chuck on
your,
We have his letter.
oh, we do have his letter, okay, never mind, I'm sorry, remove
Yeah, I
that.
just couldn't
Plan
find
doesn't
it.
show
Okay,
electrical.
I didn't either. And then, and not just piers as needed, that
Yeah, get that
specific
out of
piers.
Get that language out of there.
Okay, well, it can't be next week, because you don't meet next week. And it will not be.
Given the history, it might be
Oh,
the
yeah.
best time to do it.
You don't meet next week.
Okay.
You absolutely cannot have this on the 4th.
Well, we're gonna have a quorum problem, though.
Yep, that's what I'm checking. So then we go to the 11th, where we don't have a meeting. The 18th, we're gonna run into a quorum problem.
Not yet.
May I suggest an alternative, Mr. Chairman?
Sorry?
May I suggest an alternative? And that's, the kind of details that you're asking for right now are details that are very commonly included as requirements in an order to submit a plan that shows the spot elevation within the mooring field. And I mean, the plan already does not show electrical being extended onto it. Maybe it's a notation in you said page 4 of the notice of intent.
It's
but
also on your plan.
I don't see it on the plan, I'm sorry. I
Right
just
here
don't- I just
on
don't
this
see it.
plan, right here. Right here, this big section of your plan.
Okay. PVC electrical conduit.
And unfortunately, Mr. Watsky, the mooring field, the board really does look at soundings in a mooring field as part of their regulations, so routinely just putting it on a plan after the fact could substantively, have a bearing on this board's decision, so, no. Our council
And
won't.
we also don't want to close until we
can't.
have all the information and all that.
Correct.
We're not allowed.
Correct.
Right, that's the town council's recommendation.
All right,
Procedurally.
So, we are looking at,
But let's be clear about what we're asking them.
The new plan that'll show in the narrative, no water, and the narrative already says it, so it's just on the plan. No water, no electrical. Need sounding in the mooring field. And we need the exact pilings that are gonna be replaced, not as needed. Is that all?
okay. Ask, what's the issue with having the PVC electrical conduit and the water line going out there? Just, why is
there's a
it?
discrepancy
why
between.
is that
Because
an
in your
issue?
narrative, you say you're not doing it, and then in the plan, you say you are doing it. So if you're gonna do it, then either the narrative has to change, or the plan has to change.
Well, does the commission care whether it has the electrical
we
or the
do.
water?
Because, oh, do we care if it
Yeah,
has
do you
water?
care? One way or
Well,
the
now
other?
you have to show how you're getting it there, which means that you
see
have to
it.
trench from the house.
I see.
We're going through an A zone,
You're going through an A buffer, you're going through a salt marsh
It would be on the dock.
on the
itself,
dock.
be on the
Yeah,
dock.
on the dock.
It would be on the dock.
I guess you could rough it and put it on there and just end it without going into the A zone. But then you'd have to come back if you wanted to make that connection. You know, since you'd be taking all the boards up, I guess you could put it underneath there.
You just gotta
And
be
run it
clear
up the
what you
path.
want.
All right, so it's not a matter of absolutely taking it off, it's clarify what's intended.
Correct.
So
And how
either
you're
with the
getting it
narrative
there.
or
How you're
showing it on the
getting
plan.
Exactly
All
what
right,
Maury said.
that's
so.
fine.
And if you want to just rough it, just state, it's only going to that point and then we're stopping.
Okay.
And then you also say in your narrative that you're not putting a boat on it. So if you're not putting a boat on it, I think you should clarify that as well. Because if a boat's on it and you said you don't want it, that there's not gonna be a boat on it, then you're in violation of your order.
Don't you have a dock with no boat?
I don't, that's what they said. I didn't say it.
I-
You're all looking at me. It says no boat, no water, no electric. I didn't make it up. Page 4.
I can't explain the narrative saying that there wouldn't be a boat, but
Well, maybe-
I didn't
And
think
that's
that,
what causes the confusion.
yes, understood. I mean, conservation
I mean, I
commissions don't
understand
generally
you like
regulate
Get it out
boating.
of there.
No, we don't.
If it's a dog, if it's a dock, it's dock. We're gonna assume there's gonna be a boat on it.
Yes.
Do we have a date?
I hope this is a lesson to everybody watching to get your proper permits, all of your proper permits. Because it will come back to haunt you.
I mean, unfortunately,
From
the new
1986.
revised plan even showed more discrepancies. I mean, I was closer before than I am tonight.
So the 4th is absolutely,
I'm not here March 4th.
no, we have a quorum problem on the 18th, so it's going to be the 25th of March.
All right,
If
what's
you-
the dates we're changing for, town meeting, though?
No, we're changing April.
Okay.
We're changing April 8th
Okay,
to April
just-
15th, so this would be March 25th,
March 26th.
if that is agreeable to the applicants.
I can be there. That's fine, we'll agree to that.
So at the request of
Is
the.
that your request? Continuance to 3/26?
We have 25.
325,
I'm sorry.
understanding. Yes, please continue to 325, and we'll provide the addition, the clarified information.
Thank you.
At the request of the applicant, we will continue this to March 25th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote to continue until 3:25. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
We need a quorum, we never got.
No, we don't, I need a quorum for 42 Chase.
42 Chase.
Courtney's way ahead of us.
What about, no, we didn't get the one for that.
Yeah, we did.
Next,
You didn't give it to me, John.
You know.
Sorry, hang on.
next up, Susan Choate Garland,
Okay.
42 Chase Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct
don't need a
targeted
quorum.
treatment and manual removal of Phragmites from the bordering vegetated wetland and the edge of salt marsh on site.
I'm not inclined to do that.
Oh, yeah,
They go over there, Mike, sorry.
It's okay.
thank you.
You're forgiven tonight.
Mike. We've waited too long. This was supposed to be an easy night.
Thank you, Mike. There we go, thank you. think I only need one of these.
Here's one of these.
Came up.
Chase Road or Minot Road? Yeah. Edible landscapes.
Ron, where's mine?
Mike, oh. I grabbed it and I dumped it right on there.
I'm just, I did bring a thumb drive.
Did you give me your thumb drive, Mike?
No, I sent you the graphic.
And I didn't say I would put it on here for you. That's why you have to bring your thumb drive.
I'm wrong again.
I don't know how many times you do this, Mr. McGrath. You know we don't load the presentations for
Well,
you.
that's the Board of Appeals.
Yes, I'm not as nice as the Board of Appeals.
Like, you've always impressed us with your computer prowess.
I know.
What happens?
Which one do you want? Mike, do you want the plan or the exhibit?
It's the crayon and the
The
eyeliner.
exhibit, okay.
What? What'd you say? Oh, we had to shrink it.
Oh, yeah, well, my agent isn't here. I said I'm not the best with computers.
Look, now we had a rotate.
Okay, then you do that.
No, I don't.
No, that's gonna just, it's not, yeah, I know that.
Well, they requested it.
Where is a quorum for you?
There is
It's
no.
there, it's all of you, we haven't opened it yet. Russell, do you know how to rotate an image or not?
Ah, no, wrong person to ask.
No. Earlier,
It's kind of nice to see.
Thank you.
29, it was like.
Maybe,
Oh, cool, thank you.
It was really cold that night.
Nice job.
He has done a lot of
They don't have any
fragmites to
comments.
be permitted in this area. I wish these people
I
would
know,
get on
Mike.
board because there's none here. It's
Weird.
here.
There we go.
Thank you, sir.
They get this.
Mike, you never take anything back. How quickly do they spread? So,
Good evening. My name is Mike McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and registered land surveyor. I work for the firm of Holmes and McGrath. And today accompanying me is Dan Scandora from Edible Landscapes, and we're talking about an application for Phragmites management and eradication at a project at the intersection of Chase Road and Dealey Lane. This parcel, there's an existing single-family house. The wetland resources are that this is the Mashapaquit Creek, and there is a culvert underneath Chase Road, and then there's a big wetland that continues further. Next to the Mashapaquit Creek there's salt marsh, and I have colored the salt marsh in the bright yellow. The salt marsh does extend below mean low water, and then adjacent landward to the salt marsh is a freshwater wetland, and it's lime green, and I'm tracing the approximate inland edge. I'm sorry, it's down in here. And then immediately up, immediately adjacent to the freshwater wetland is a limited coastal bank that starts way down here, and it continues, and then it dies in about here. Now, the whole site is in a map flood zone. This is AE elevation 15 on this side, AE elevation 17 on this side. So the Falmouth wetland regulations have different buffer zones. We're showing this to be the 100-foot A zone from the salt marsh. I'm sorry, and this is the 100-foot from the coastal bank 50 foot from the coastal bank and 50 foot further for the B, and then there's another B. But all the work is taking place inside the area that's marked Phragmites Management and Eradication. So, accompanying me is Dave Scandora, who will describe to you his, the management. And I did send over the PDF, there was a PDF. Yes, that he can now, in case he wanted to, describe that to the people at home.
Should I read this?
No.
I would summarize
I'll do
it, sir. The
some-
board
yeah,
is
so-
already, just 1 second, your staff report, Alyssa had already seen this, so it's all summarized. So I would just summarize it.
Yeah.
Summarize.
So we are going to manually cut the Phragmites and then apply organic herbicide with the cut and dab treatment. We'll do that basically for the first year. We're probably gonna we'll do it 3 times a year, as it says on here somewhere. 3 to 5 times per season. And after year 3, we will then assess the Phragmites, and if we have eradicated it, then we won't need to do this process again. But if it's still there, then we will reapply. I think after 3 years, we go through this process again to reapply if it's still there. And I'm not sure what else. Do you have any other questions? I can answer questions.
You're not planning on any planting at this point?
At this point, that's not in the plan. That is not
You're
in the
hoping
plan.
the salt marsh will come back, the salt marsh in that area?
Sure, the native plants, that's the idea, is that if we can get the Phragmites out of there, then it'll fill in.
Similar to Sipowisit. So are you a licensed herbicide applicator?
I will be I'm taking the test on March 6th.
Okay.
So I'm taking the course next week. It's a 2-day course, and then, fingers crossed I should be, but currently as it is now, we have a subcontractor who's licensed that we use for this kind of thing, but I said, this year I'm gonna do it. So I'm not sure if, I guess there's always the question what if I don't pass the test on March 6th?
What I mean is a licensed herbicide applicator going to be performing the work?
Absolutely,
whether it be you, the subcontractor?
Yeah, we have the subcontractors,
Okay.
all the info here.
And it's the drip method, correct?
Excuse me?
It's the drip method. You're gonna use a little sponge and
Yeah,
drip
cut
it
and
on.
dab, yeah.
It's not gonna be a spray?
No, not spraying.
Yeah. Okay.
It's specifically right on the Phragmites stalks themselves. They'll get the organic herbicide. And we did research, and this particular product, Axe Broad Spectrum, is the best for that species of plant. So,
So because the board and the staff, it's kind of your first time before the board and the staff, when we issue the permits, if you're going to be the contractor overseeing the project, then we'll probably schedule an on-site with you just to go over once again your methodology. So we know from staff level, who's actually gonna be performing the work, whether it be you, hopefully you pass your exam, or your subcontractor. Okay, so that will be a condition of the permit that you have to meet with myself or the staff prior to doing the work.
sure,
Okay?
absolutely.
Are there any other questions?
We're working on it. Kevin?
Questions?
Maury?
Glad to see it. That's a big stand of Phragmites.
Yeah.
Nice to see it eradicated.
Yeah, that's the plan. We gotta just.
Good luck with your test.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Really?
You're the owner of the company?
Yeah.
Where'd you get the name from?
Yeah, so this is actually not our normal thing. We install veggie gardens and foodscapes, and we help people grow food. So that's what we're doing for Susan. But she says, "I got this nasty Phragmites. Can you take care of it?" And we've done this kind of work. And or the former company I used to work for, we did a lot of that. And so yeah, of course I can do it. But now I'm like, all right, we got to go through this whole thing, and I got to get the test and everything. So
All right, thanks a lot.
Contradiction of terms. No.
yeah, yes, definitely nothing.
It's an interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, we worked on a project a little farther up the road, and the expansion of the Phragmites is impressive in just a year since the last time I drove by the site,
Yeah.
so good luck with that.
Right across the little, that body of water, I can't remember.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a little stand of it, and it's like, oh, we probably should nip that in the bud, but I actually don't know who owns that land, but that could be something down the road, I don't know.
That's your cards out.
Yeah, yeah. Put a big sign out when you're doing the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
Lori owns it.
Peter?
It's a great project. No further questions.
Excellent.
I make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board?
Mr. Chairman, that would be for 3-4, is that where advisements would go? Is that the date we're looking at?
Yes,
Just to, informal.
yes.
Okay.
So they would be
Chairman, no other
voting on
questions.
the project on March 4th with an issuance date by the 11th.
Okay.
Okay?
Would I need to come back on?
No, you don't need to come back. I mean, you can, but you won't be able to say anything or present anything. The hearing's closed, but if
But you
you
could
would
tell us if you.
like to sit here till 1 o'clock in the morning with us on the 4th, you can.
Yeah, okay.
It's a very long night, I would suggest no.
Really?
Any comments from the public?
I just want to make one comment, is that the amount of carbon dioxide is increasing in our atmosphere.
So we should
And-
have more Phragmites?
No, we're going to end up with more Phragmites and more invasives
Right.
because they grow the quickest.
Exactly.
So we really got to think about controlling the carbon dioxide. Mankind, not you guys. So.
We'll work on it for you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I just remembered.
We'll see you on the onsite.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll just be in touch
Phragmites are a
then
positive.
after March 4th.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah,
That's
I don't know why I
easy.
thought it was from
I know.
the other ones.
No.
I thought you wanted to. Maybe. All right.
Next up, John and Deborah Gillespie, 39 Inkberry Lane, North
Don't need
Falmouth, Mass, for
I
permission to
actually
raise, R-A-Z-E, an existing single-family dwelling and to construct and maintain
Follow
a new single-family dwelling with a garage, front porch and stairs, back patio and stairs, a new driveway, retaining wall, Title V sewage disposal system, mitigation plantings with all associated grading, utilities, and landscaping.
This was just for DEP number, right?
This was only for the issuance of a
We got
DEP number, which we received.
I make a
Can
motion
you
to
give me that
close.
number? Jen?
Oh, I don't have,
Oh.
it's down, you know what, it came in the other day, so.
I have it, but I don't have it.
No, I saw it come into my email, and I don't have my work phone, so I can't give you the number, but I can assure you we have the DEP
All
number.
right.
Make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
See, I can do some things.
What?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It is unanimous.
Inkberry.
Next up, continued request for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. Robert Sullivan, Wings Pond LLC, 63 North Falmouth Highway, Falmouth, Mass. Request for confirmation of the following resource area boundaries: isolated land subject to flooding, freshwater wetland.
No, this wasn't open.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Ken Thompson, botanist, wetland scientist. I was called into this site after the first crew came in, and it appeared they flagged the vernal pool high watermark around the pool itself. It's a certified vernal pool. Stepped up the slope 2 feet, get 20 inches of soil under it. The soils are extremely bright all the way up the slope there. Sweet pepper goes up the slope.
No.
Cinnamon fern goes up the slope, but yet the soils are 5.4, 5.6. And I flagged it about 2 feet above the water line. Seems like it's a groundwater fed
Well, it's not
pocket
already.
pool. There's not much elevation change in the water there, so I'm assuming it's groundwater fed with, of course, sand overburning. So, I mean, that's really what's going on there.
Russell, what was your comment? I'm sorry?
It hasn't been
Hasn't
opened.
been opened.
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
That's what I said.
Oh, did I talk too quick?
No, it's okay. No, you're fine, sir. Mr. Chairman, the staff went out there, we looked,
Sorry.
we confirmed the wetland line, Mark's in agreement with it. He's taken everybody out there, your junior staff, our AmeriCorps intern, who now decides she doesn't wanna delineate wetlands. We're going to the site. Very briary. In trouble getting in there. Yeah, we're fine with it. And we're basically just confirming the the freshwater wetland line and, not the vernal pool. It is a certified vernal pool. Okay.
Do we need a butter cards?
Did they notify our butters?
I was called the other day to come down here. The surveyor had a heart attack. He's in recovery. And the landowner, Mr. Sullivan, just got out of the surgery 2 days ago. So
We'll double check with that.
if I don't have them, I will get them.
Yep, no, we'll double check with that. They did notify, it's in their application that they notified a butter, so we'll get the cards from them.
So can we
We'll
close it?
reach out to them. Okay?
Without those?
Yeah, that's fine.
I just had one question.
They're just certified a butters list from the assessor's office.
Maureen?
I just had one quick question. This used to be known as Molly's Swamp. Where the highway, where it says, right where it says North Falmouth Highway, Commonwealth of Mass piece of property, that was all filled? They're not gonna do anything in there, am I in here?
This is an ANRAD, Maury. We don't know what the proposal is
Okay.
going to be. This is strictly to
To delineate the
confirm the
vernal pool.
wetland boundaries.
Okay. Because that was a lot to play.
I
Okay,
understand that.
Thank you. That's all.
Kevin?
No questions.
Russ?
Nope.
No.
Steve?
No.
Peter? All right.
Motion to close?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take that under advisement, or do we just vote it?
Close and take it under advisement.
Advisement.
Sorry.
Okay.
That was shorthand,
One more.
what that was.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Next up, excuse me, request to amend the existing order of conditions. The Woods Hole, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket Steamship Authority, Woods Hole Ferry Terminal, end of Railroad Avenue, Woods Hole, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to amend DEP number SE 25-4151 to place stone fill and riprap along the bulkhead and within the slips, and to install additional steel piles immediately outboard and against the current steel sheet pile bulkhead.
Good evening. My name is William Cloutier. I'm with the Steamship Authority. I'm the project manager for this Woods Hole reconstruction project.
Quorum?
You don't need a quorum.
It's new.
No, it's a new amended.
New amendment.
It's not a continued amended.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem, sir.
So, back in 2015.
Just feels that way, huh?
Oh, boy, it's been rough.
Yes.
Back in 2015, we were in front of this commission to get order of conditions, and we permitted the project in the slips to a -17 elevation. More recently, once we started the developing the design documents, we did a bathymetric survey of the slips, and we noticed that the middle slip was had been scoured to about -26. So we moved forward with the design of the bulkhead based on a -26 elevation. since then, you know, we're in our second or third year of construction down there. We've completed the knot slip, which is called slip 3, and we're in the process of constructing and completing the middle slip, which was the slip that had the deepest scouring. But we've noticed in the past months that the knot slip, as well as the middle slip, is getting scoured. So we have one of our ferries, it's the Island Home, that seems to be scouring the slips significantly. And our concern is the bulkhead stability. We have our engineers and GZA look at this, and they come up with a design for an anti-scour pad and a berm at the toe of the bulkhead to stabilize, just to reinsure the stabilization of the bulkhead. What I'd like to do is I'll introduce Dino Fiscaletti, our chief engineer from GZA, to describe the process. And I have some, in the time since I submitted these documents, I had Cashman Construction look at the documents and come up with a construction procedure for the work. If you folks are interested, I can pass that out now. Or is it too late?
You're killing me, Bill. You can pass it out now, please.
Dino, I'm gonna pass it out.
Bill Senna, Dino Fiscaletti with GZA, team of engineers and architects on the project. And as Bill explained, I think we start with a little background as to how we got where we are today. This is the terminal that probably most people are familiar with. This is what it looked like about 3 years ago.
Thank you.
The solid fill wharf here with the terminal building. The two horseshoe-shaped slips to the south, slips 1 and 2. And if I were a little better at graphics manipulation, what you might see here are actual elevations and contours. But what we're trying to show here is the scour in this slip 1 out in the area where the cursor is was down to -26 prior to construction, and higher around -20 or so in the deep part of the slip. This slip, again out here, the deepest scour was around -22 and higher in the -teens in the deep part of the slip. As part of the construction, what we essentially did was excavate the outer portion of the wharf and put a new sheet pile bulkhead across the face of the two horseshoe-shaped slips. So to try and tie the old with the new, there's a recent construction photo that shows what remains of the wharf, the newly constructed slip 3 here, slip 2 here, and if you can catch those white lines, that shows where the new bulkhead is going across. This is the area that was scoured out initially. So when we're done, it will look something like this. Slip 3 here to the north, slip 2 in the middle, and slip 1 to the south. A couple of weeks ago, actually, I'll step back a year ago, during construction, when we were building slip 3, the bulkhead was installed and anchored, and then what we attribute to one incident, the installation of one of these monopile dolphins, basically vibrated the ground. We think liquefied and densified the soil, which removed support from the bulkhead temporarily, and this section of bulkhead moved. It moved. The pressure that was built up by the vibrations for the installation of that pile dissipated, firmed up. Everything was solid again. Continued with construction of slip 3. This year, we're putting more bulkhead in across this slip, installing more of these monopile dolphins. We experienced some movement in the new stretcher bulkhead, not nearly as much as we had at slip 3. That stabilized. We thought, okay, it happened again to a lesser extent, we're good to go. We experienced more movement after that we couldn't attribute to the monopiles. The monopiles were all in. From the design calculations we had at that time, we didn't have an entire package. We weren't the design engineers. We were concerned at that time about the stability of the wall, and should we continue with construction, or should we take other measures to make sure things are stable. We looked at the subsurface information we had, the borings we had taken, and we didn't have information directly in front of this section of wall. So we went out to collect more data to see if the design conditions, or I should say the conditions used in the design, approximated what we found in front of the wall. We had since gotten more design calculations from the designer and determined that the wall we had installed last year and this year, based on the design calcs and the information we found, we saw no issue with the design and found that they followed the standard of care that you would follow to design a bulkhead. And came to the conclusion, we're still looking at things, but that this portion is stable as is under existing conditions. As part of those investigations, we also went out and did some additional lead line surveys to see where the mud line is today. And that's where we found that this area of slip 3, which last May or June was somewhere around elevation -17, -18, was last week down to -22, -23. While we expected some scour out in the slip, we didn't expect that kind of scour up against the bulkhead. And while this bulkhead is designed to handle water depths of that type, much more erosion in this area could possibly destabilize the wall. But even before that happens, a sheet pile bulkhead is a flexible structure, and it depends on the soil in front of the embedded portion to hold it in place. You remove some of that soil, the sheet pile wants to bulge. It's not failing. It's not in danger of destabilizing, but you've taken the resisting force away from the front. It wants to bulge out. So if it bulges out here, then what happens back here is things want to settle a little bit. And now you've got depressions in your pavement, maybe some cracking in your concrete, just because things have moved. What we are asking to do to help arrest that movement and to make sure things...
Excuse me 1 second, sir, I'm sorry. You're okay? Okay, go on, sorry.
Okay.
Thought we had computer failure over here.
What we're asking to do to help arrest that movement and keep things where they belong is put a riprap berm along the toe of the wall to hold it into place, and to prevent future scour, riprap around a portion of the slip. And we initially were thinking riprap, but a better solution in that portion of the slip would be articulated concrete mats to prevent future scour and undermining. In section, this is cut right through slip 3. The shaded portion, we took these from the design drawings. This is the portion of the wharf that we've since removed. Here is the bulkhead. We would put the tow berm here to protect the bulkhead and extend riprap and the articulated concrete mat along the floor of the slip. And these are just sections through other areas of the bulkhead showing the same procedure. If we use the articulated mat, it wouldn't require this much fill. This was drawn as though it were riprap. So the berm would be a core of crushed stone, filtering to larger stone, and then a 3-foot or so layer of armor stone, maybe 20 inches in diameter. We're still working on sizing the stone to prevent it from getting scoured. We just recently got more information on the ferry and the prop so that we can properly size the stone. The slip, we would put the articulated concrete mat across the slip, anchor it, and place riprap around the structures on either side of the slip. And if you're not familiar with these mats, essentially, it is as though you took concrete blocks and just laid them end to end and ran a steel cable or a steel bar through them. So it creates a flexible mat, pretty much like a doormat or a bamboo mat that you would see at a house, only a lot heavier and a lot bigger to prevent scour and erosion. To place, that went too far. To place the stone in a controlled fashion, we would probably use something like a telebelt, and what that is basically a conveyor. The stone would be deposited in a hopper away from the bulkhead. It's fed onto the conveyor and then dropped through a chute or a pipe, which is lowered into the water, maybe to about 2 feet off of the bottom so that it falls where you want it to fall, and is controlled. We'd of course have turbidity barriers around this work to limit the spread of turbidity. And this way the stone, the smallest stone, can be placed in a very controlled fashion. Once it's in place, we'll have divers down, moving things around, putting them where they belong. The larger armor stone would have to be set with a clamshell or a grapple brought down to the bottom. 20-inch stone, again, kind of heavy, but still barely small enough for a diver to manipulate if he had to lock them into place. And the articulated mats are again put in with a crane. There's a special rig that just holds them in place, and you lower this on the bottom and just slowly lower the ends and set them into position. So while the wall is stable now, we're concerned about future scour, and we'd like to prevent that and to make sure the wall stays stable in the future and we don't get any further movement.
How many layers of mats are you gonna be using?
How many layers?
Yeah.
The mat is probably just going to be one layer.
Okay. No. It is what.
The matting doesn't go under the riprap berm.
It doesn't go, but it'll, let me try and get, the mat will go, we'll make sure that we have full coverage. And this shows riprap, but the edge of the mat will go under the riprap. Riprap will overlay the edge so we have continuity, so we don't have any gaps forming between the riprap and the mat. So I think that shows in, yeah, right up here. That will lay the mat down, and then some of the riprap will go over the top of the edge of the mat.
You're not worried about any, I don't know what the proper term would be, turbulence creating turbidity, yeah, well,
You're gonna have the turbidity curtain.
getting that seam, if you will, and undermining it, no?
No, well, the riprap, again, riprap will be sized, you're talking about once it's in place, being kicked up by the propeller
Yeah.
for more scour. No, the riprap will be sized so that the velocities that we'll see from the propeller won't move the riprap.
The mat is concrete.
The mat is concrete.
Like concrete
Will
blocks.
it,
That was actually pretty.
Yeah.
Can you go back to that slide, please?
The one where it's being
Placement
put
of
in
the mat?
place?
yeah,
I think it was that last one.
This one? Yeah. Yeah, the mat is concrete. It also is sized so that you have enough weight. The big issue with the mat is more suction, lifting it up off the bottom. So it also has to be designed to be thick enough and be heavy enough, so that doesn't happen.
will the concrete wear over time?
The concrete won't wear. The steel eventually will
Yeah.
corrode.
Yeah,
I can't tell you right now what they predict for design life for these mats. Corrosion, usually your corrosion rates are worse in your tide zone and just below mean low water. The deeper you get, the slower the rate of corrosion.
No doubt Cashman's gonna give you a break on this.
Careful. Anything else, Kevin?
No, all set.
What is the weight of the articulated mat?
That we haven't sized yet.
So you can size them for whatever the prop wash and the.
Yeah, you size them based on velocity.
That's what I was wondering, because I don't know what the screw velocity is on those seamers, but they must be pretty big. Yeah. And that's one where I come to the 20-inch stone that a man can move, and I'm thinking if a diver can move a 20-inch stone, I bet you the prop wash on that boat there, whatever she's called, Highland, she can move those pretty well. So that was more my concern. I thought the articulated mats were kind of cool. I'm thinking about a lot of applications now that I see it.
Oh, yeah, they're used everywhere for
Yeah.
erosion control, stream
but-
banks.
Assuming that the bunker rock is gonna hold those down, and you're not gonna get turbidity and a lot of, I don't know. I guess you're gonna find out when it gets hung up in that prop.
Oh,
Oh, I mean, it could suck that right off the bottom.
There is, yeah, and that's when I say, there is a procedure. So far, we've done calculations. We've come up with 20 inches, and that was, I'll say it's more than a best guess. We have pages of calculations already. But we didn't have all the information that we needed, the prop type, the prop size, et cetera. We just got that information yesterday. If we can revisit our calcs and size the stone
And then you're gonna
properly.
size it to that.
It's also a function of how far the prop is
Yeah.
from
Oh,
the
yeah.
bottom, your distance.
Mhm. But like I say, that would be an awful thing to get tangled up in your prop. That,
Oops.
yeah, that was it.
I'm good.
No questions.
I have a question. You said that the depth went down to 26, 27 feet, and the blocks are 20 inches thick or whatever. Are you intending to refill the prop wash, or you are going to put this layer of mattress directly over to the existing bottom?
We may, initially, a few weeks ago, we were, to say very concerned about the stability of the wall is a slight understatement. When we had the movement and we had limited design calcs, that's when we requested for the rest of the calculation package to make sure that it had been designed once with these depths. At that time, we thought, I'll go to this slide because it does show a wedge. At that time, we did think we would have to fill a portion of the slip to that design depth. Now that we're a little more comfortable with the wall design, we may place a thin layer of stone or fill to kind of smooth things out before we put the mat down. But no, we don't intend to fill the slip back to where it was. Exactly. We thought we might have to fill it to -17. Today, we don't think that. We think a little bit of smoothing out, and then the mats and the riprap. That'll take care of it. As long as we can maintain where we are now,
Okay.
we expect to be okay.
Okay, no further questions?
Thank you.
Question for Jen. Are you okay with the 8,600 square feet of muddy habitat to be covered? I just saw that, an alteration of habitat from muddy bottom substrate to a combination of mud and stone of 8,600 square feet of stone fill.
Our alternative.
Yeah, nothing.
There's
Yeah,
nothing
okay, as
our-
long as you're okay, yeah. Yeah,
I
I'm good.
understand what's
I'm good.
happening, but I mean,
You gotta do it, yeah. I make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? There's no public to ask. All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good luck, this will be interesting to watch.
Yeah, really. Thank you. Now
Thank
that we're
you.
closed, the theme of those closed.
Is that it? Oh, no, we have to vote orders.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys, the pilots are great, but
Next up, vote order of conditions, Mary and Joseph Noonan, 183 Surf Drive, Falmouth, Mass.
I think I just ripped up the back. No, seriously, I think I just did.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I did, so I'm thinking it's everything. Were any of you not here last week?
Russ.
Oh, wait, here
I
we go.
wasn't on
Nope.
this, I was not
No,
on this.
I got it. Oh, Russ, you're out.
Yep, nice.
Lori, Betsy, Jamie, Steve, Kevin, Peter, the rest of you have to stay. I think they did all the design changes we wanted. They further enclosed the breakaway panel section, kept more of them open, did the soil pouring. We're gonna do the pre-construction meeting to make sure that the contractor chosen understands that they have to use that trench box
Yep.
to jig the pilings, because that was one of the major concerns of the staff. The plantings will be an improvement.
Yep, and the dewatering is that they manage that
Water's-
properly.
Yeah, the
Yep.
dewatering might get messy.
And the neighbor will be
but-
happy because I saw him digging out Fresh Pond the other day, so.
Oh, yeah.
What did we come up with on ZBA?
They have to go to ZBA, so they've already filed with the ZBA.
So
I
that
made
covers
sh-
us.
Yeah, so basically, the Wetlands Protection Act says that an applicant has to, apply for or obtain. So they've applied to the ZBA.
I think you told me that, I
Yeah.
just.
Make sure, yeah, I forgot about that one.
My big thing is gonna be the pre-construction, because I can just see a contractor not knowing they have to use that trench box, and I'm really concerned about that wall. But I mean, I did check with the building department, I checked with both the building commissioner and Inspector Street, and they said that if they use, Gary says if they use that trench box, they should be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
So, that's all I
I
have.
move the order as discussed.
Second.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Not yet.
Nope.
Other business.
Oh, the only other business is
schedule.
we're gonna be sending you guys a note, we need to switch you were gonna have April 8th off and not meet on the 15th, and we have to switch that because of town meeting. Town meeting is the week of the 13th, I've been told. So,
Motion to adjourn.
So now we're working the 8th and not the 15th, is that what you just said?
Correct.
that's what I said, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
All
not
right, you're
working,
welcome to attend town meeting.
we're not working the 8th and we're not working the 15th.
No,
That's, I
you
got
are working the 8th, and
See,
you
it wasn't
are
clear,
not
see,
working
it
the
wasn't clear.
15th.
Somebody second that motion to adjourn.
Blah, 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 blah. You guys have these
We have a
meetings without us. and
Motion
then
to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Further discussion.